It's great to know you're still there with us on Breakfast Weekend on Impact Africa Television, IATV. Now, this past week, the remains of Alagba, Baba, Moses Olaya Dejumo, aka Baba Sala, was finally laid to rest. This peak moment of his final burial, of course, had a number of events to celebrate his life. We had artists' night, we had a public lecture, we had so many artists organizing different things, family members organizing different things to celebrate the icon that we all knew as Alawada Keri Keri in Nigeria. It's of course important, and on the heels of this, that we have to discuss this very important man today that some have called the grandfather of comedy in Nigeria. Doing this with us this morning, we have Mr. Jare Ajayi. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's great to have you with us.
Well, it's my pleasure being here.
Baba Sala died in October.
Yes.
I want to know your first reaction to his death. How did you feel?
Well, it will be very factual because death of people of that stature it was not new. I was sure quite all right because the death of any human being normally distracts from an individual. I remember that in 1978, for example, when Drew Ladipo died, with the same kind of emotion, the same kind of shock, permeated the atmosphere. So the same thing when we had the death of Professor Akim Mishola and Baba Faleti. I mean, these are people that were related with at one level or the other, even though we are like sons to them. Yet, because of the sense of camaraderie in the thespian, in the literary world, that will make it possible for one to be able to relate with them, and then of course as a journalist too. So when the announcement was made that Baba Sala eventually gave up, it was a big shock, and it touched us, those of us in the Association of Nigerian Authors, to the extent that we even organized an evening. So that's to tell you how close relatively we were. To answer your question in summary, the death, even though it wasn't the first time, the day one was raised. In 2015, there was a rumor that he died. Luckily, he survived it. But now, the thing has really come to pass.
To many different people in Nigeria, Baba Sala meant different things. Of course, he did some music in his time. He was a comedian, some theater along the line as well. Yeah. Now, many have described this loss as a monumental one, being that, these different sectors of people are missing this icon. How would you describe his life? How would you describe his works? Just summarily. A
fellow writer described the death of Professor Benedict Obunzelu, a very literary icon, as when trying to describe his death, he said that when an African elder dies, it's like a whole library perishes. The same thing can be said about Moses and Olaya Dijumo, aka Baba Sala. Baba Sala encapsulated so many things. I mean, he was an entertainer, a musician, a dramatist, a comedian, and for many who may not realize this aspect, even though it's known but not widely known, he was also a man of God. Not just in the sense of being godly, but in the sense of even having a church where he ministers, and he doesn't joke with his morning prayer in the daily prayers in the morning and in the evening. This was even further testified to by the children. Now, being a person, you say he meant different to different people. I think he meant it's easier. He is not one of those controversial people, first of all, and easier to really put Baba Sala in a particular department or compartment, in the sense that it is in the entertainment industry. Baba Sala is one of those people you heard many things around him in terms of scandal, in terms of controversy, other than some misfortunes that he suffered. Apart from that, his lifestyle was along the direction. Just like we talk about Baba Ogunde. In fact, unlike Baokunde, who also let us adopted or rather involved activism into his own drama. Baba Sala was mainly into comedy.
Works. How would you describe his works and what it meant to
fantastic.
people?
His works, when they say Adeni Kusunu, Baba Sala is a father in that respect. Even the later day comedians and entertainers, they always give that credit to him too. I do remember that in the 70s, for example, whenever Baba Sala was going to have a show on the TV, many people will always be rushing home to be part of it, not to miss it. And when he's to have a show in cinema houses too, the same thing happens.
Just before he passed on, I don't think a lot of people talked about him this much as we are doing at the moment. A lot of people just, in fact, some people will say, Baba Sala, is Baba Sala still alive? Do you think it was because of that misfortune you talked about that, you know, he just went behind the curtain, so to say?
Well, if you will recall that towards the end of his life, he was out of the plague leg, out of the radar in terms of publicity, in terms of performance. But that was largely due to his ill health. Illness. And that's an area I really want us to talk about, because it's not peculiar to him. But we'll come to that. Yeah, he was not being talked more. We talked about much, and honestly, some of us should be blamed for this. Why do I say that? Even a person who is dead, once he has produced some works, they can be talked about often and often, bringing out, looking at it in different ways. You critique the work. And luckily you people are familiar with literally like activism. So by so doing, the person will not be forgotten. The person's image will constantly ring in the minds of the people. Unfortunately, we didn't do that much with some of those our people, yes, including Baba Sala. So that I think is responsible for the seeming silence towards the end of his life. But then again, the twilight of his life also happened to be at a time when Nigeria and Nigerians were going through very difficult times. That need also be said, such that not many people have much time for entertainment, even though the entertainment could have helped in ameliorating or at least psychologically, keeping them up. But then you still need some materials to keep yourself alive. What
kind of structure do you think can be on ground to help, veteran artists?
Interesting. The kind of structure, if we have to use that word, I wouldn't have used it, but it's fine. That is needed in the country goes beyond the one that artists need or we need. Only the day before yesterday, I think the first lady, Alaja Aisha Buhari, was calling on the Minister of Health to say that Nigerians, especially those who are suffering ill health, don't have to go on air to start soliciting
for money.
Financial assistance. That the Minister of Health should ensure that he puts the machinery in motion so that people will have places to access their healthcare needs. That's to tell you that this thing should go around.
Definitely, maybe the larger portion of this should go to the government.
Yeah.
But we have people. You were talking about Salah earlier, and you said, he cut across every part of the society. He made everybody laugh.
Yes.
So when it comes to helping these people, why does it always have to go to the government? How about we? For example, there are a lot of these people that they're not dead yet, but we just stopped hearing about them. They're not playing the parts they used to play in the movies that we used to enjoy them in, and we're not asking any question. But then they pass on, and we begin to wonder, why didn't the government help? Where do people who benefited also come in?
I agree with you entirely. Not just even helping. The condition in which these people lived towards the end of their life that made them become invalid and probably shorten their life. Part of the what contributed to it was, came from us. For example, I'll just cite two examples. Tajuddin, I can't remember the son in Abidjan, the man popularly known as Abidjan, had an accident. and he's been limping, has not gotten completely out of it. And he did say that part of his problem was that one of his friends even undercut him, and put him into a financial problem. That's contributory to his condition, you can imagine. So such a person, in addition to requiring assistance, was also more or less sabotaged. The same thing about Baba Sala. We have talked earlier about how his film was pirated. I mean, these ones were not by government.
Sure.
That people in the town, and most of the time, people you even trust. Because it's people who have access to your this thing that will be able to deal with you. I mean, a person on the street is not likely to have access to that film before it was even released. So it must be people around him who are able to do that kind of thing. Those infrastructure ought to be functioning properly, so that even when you want to access things, it will be easier for you to access it.
Okay.
Some of the things we should do is the type we are doing now, and for this I want to praise IATV.
Thank you
For calling attention to this kind of thing. So to call the attention of those who are to be responsible, the authorities, and then to challenge each other, to challenge ourselves, so that we'll be more alive to assisting one another and to help the society further.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jerry Ajayi, for being on the show with us this morning. We've been speaking with Mr. Jerry Ajayi, like I just addressed him. We'll take a break. The next segment is up in a moment. Don't go away.
Thank you very much.